Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Yes, welcome back.
Today we're going to be tackling a topic that's pretty heavy, and that is modern slavery and the generational trauma that can follow.
Definitely not an easy subject,
Yeah.
but I think we've got some really good material to work with.
Yeah, for sure.
We got R.M. Thenard's writing to guide us.
Yeah.
And specifically 2 articles, Slavery Survivor and Why Not Thrive.
And she's a black woman who
Yeah.
has just such a unique voice and perspective on this topic, and
Yeah.
both of these articles really do make you stop and think.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
And I think she doesn't shy away from difficult questions.
right.
She really invites us to consider the complexities.
Yeah, and she starts out right away
Yeah.
with this quote from Bob Marley.
Yes.
Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds.
Oh, that's such a good one.
I know, and that's from Redemption Song, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So powerful.
It's brilliant how she uses this quote.
You know, especially I think as a black woman, writing about these issues,
Yeah.
it just immediately sets this tone of empowerment, you know? Like right away, she's reminding us that freedom starts within.
Yeah.
But it also kind of raises this question for me of like,
Yeah.
what exactly is mental slavery
Right.
and how is it relevant to us today?
Yeah, it's such a strong image, too.
It is.
You know, mental slavery.
Yeah.
It makes you think about, like, those invisible chains
Yeah.
that are holding us back.
Absolutely. And Thenard argues that while, you know, physical slavery may be largely abolished,
Right.
mental slavery is still very much alive and well.
Yeah.
And especially, I think, within the black community,
Right.
it's the internalized oppression, you know,
Yeah.
the limiting beliefs, the constant feeling of being less than. And it's rooted in this historical trauma that continues to shape the black experience.
Thenard actually states in Slavery Survivor
Yeah.
that she herself is a survivor of modern slavery.
Yeah, and that's such a jarring statement, isn't it?
It is.
Because we often think of slavery as something from the past.
Right, exactly.
But that's exactly what Thenard wants to challenge.
Yeah.
You know, she's talking about these systems of exploitation and oppression that are still very much in play today.
So like mass incarceration,
Yes, exactly.
which disproportionately affects black men,
Mm.
or the lack of access to capital for black-owned businesses.
Yes.
These are forms of like economic and social control
Right.
that really do echo
They do.
the legacy of slavery.
Exactly.
So it's like slavery has morphed into something else.
Yes.
You know, something more subtle,
Yeah.
more insidious, but just as powerful
Yeah,
in its ability to limit people's lives.
absolutely. And it's important to note here, I think,
Yeah.
that Thenard doesn't shy away from the ways in which this modern-day slavery is intertwined with race. You know, she's speaking from her own experience as a black woman, and,
Yeah.
and that perspective, I think, is crucial for understanding the nuances of these issues.
There's a point in Slavery Survivor where Thenard talks about
Oh, yeah?
her Southern-born stepfather
Right.
teaching her to look down when addressing white men.
That really struck me when I read that.
Me too.
It's just this heartbreaking example of the deeply ingrained fear and
Yeah.
survival mechanisms that have been passed down through generations.
Yeah, through generations of black people.
It really speaks to the ways in which historical trauma just shapes behavior
Right.
and creates these invisible barriers
Yeah.
in everyday life.
It's like that fear becomes woven into like the fabric of your being,
Yes.
even if you're not consciously aware of it.
Right.
And I think it's important to acknowledge the emotional weight
Yeah.
that Thenard carries in her writing.
Oh, for sure.
It's not just like an intellectual exercise.
Yeah.
It's deeply personal. And it's infused with this righteous anger.
Absolutely. And that anger is understandable,
Yeah.
given the weight of history and the ongoing injustices that she's calling out.
Right.
But what I find remarkable is that she doesn't let that anger consume her.
Right.
Instead, she channels it into this powerful call for healing and transformation.
Okay, so we've talked about mental slavery and this idea that slavery isn't just a relic of the past.
Yeah.
Where does Thenard go from there?
Well, she brings up another challenging concept, and that's generational trauma.
Okay.
And it's this idea that the trauma of slavery hasn't just disappeared, you know?
Right.
It's been passed down through
It's
generations.
like inherited almost.
Yeah, and it's affecting the mental, emotional, even physical health of black people today.
It's heavy stuff.
It is.
But I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to, regardless of their race. You know,
Yeah.
we all carry the weight of our ancestors' experiences,
Right.
whether we're conscious of it or not.
Right, but I think for Black people, this generational trauma is often compounded by the ongoing reality of racism and discrimination.
Right. It's like this double burden
Yes.
that can make it incredibly difficult to heal and to thrive.
Exactly. And that brings us to Thenard's second article, Why Not Thrive?
I love this title because it's like
Yeah.
almost defiant.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
why not thrive despite everything?
Exactly. And she starts off by acknowledging this exhaustion
Yeah.
that she feels as a Black woman in America.
And it's that raw honesty
Yes.
that makes her writing so powerful.
Absolutely.
She's not sugarcoating anything.
Yeah.
She's laying it all out there.
Yeah.
And then she goes on to ask these really profound questions
Yeah.
like, do we need a perfect world to thrive?
Yeah.
How much oppression needs to be eradicated
Right.
before Black people can truly thrive?
This question's really resonated with me.
Yeah.
It's like she's grappling with this immense challenge of healing
Yeah.
on both a personal and a societal level. Because how do you even begin to thrive when you're constantly bombarded with these messages that tell you you're not good enough?
Right.
That you don't deserve to be happy?
And then she brings in this idea
Yes.
that we all experience both sides of the asshole coin.
That's a tough one.
It is.
But I think it's an important point.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to get caught up in this binary of like oppressor versus oppressed.
Right.
But Thenard is pushing us to recognize the complexities of human experience.
Yeah.
We all have the capacity for both harm and healing.
Right.
And acknowledging that duality, I think, is crucial
Yeah.
for moving forward.
It's like she's saying that we need to take responsibility for our own actions
Yeah.
while also recognizing those systemic forces
Mm.
that contribute to suffering.
Exactly. And that brings us to, I think, another really important point that Thenard makes.
Oh, yeah?
She asks, why is anyone's trauma more important than the other?
Whoa.
It's such a powerful statement
Yeah.
that challenges us to move beyond a hierarchy of suffering and to recognize the shared humanity that connects us all.
Yeah. It's like she's saying that while our struggles may be different, the need for healing and connection is something that we all share.
Yes, and that's where I think Thenard's perspective as a Black woman is so valuable.
Yeah.
You know, she's not just talking about abstract concepts.
Right.
She's grounding them in her own lived experience,
Mm-hmm.
which gives her writing, I think, this incredible weight and authenticity.
Okay. So we've covered mental slavery,
Yeah.
generational trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and this idea of the asshole coin.
Right.
Where do we go from here?
That's a great question.
How do we actually move from surviving to thriving?
And that's a question that we will explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But I think it's important to emphasize that Thenard doesn't offer any easy answers.
Right.
Instead, she invites us to engage in this ongoing process of self-reflection, healing, and collective action.
It sounds like Thenard's really pushing us to think deeply about these issues
She is.
and to challenge our assumptions about race trauma and what it means to truly thrive
Yeah,
in a world that's still grappling with the legacy of slavery.
absolutely. And I think the first step is simply to listen, you know,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
hear her voice
Right.
and to allow her words to spark something within us.
I love that. We've been talking about mental slavery and generational trauma.
Yeah,
And it can feel overwhelming.
it can.
You know, all this heavy stuff.
For sure.
But Thenard doesn't leave us hanging in despair.
No, she doesn't.
You know, in Why Not Thrive,
Right.
she actually offers a way forward.
Yeah.
And it starts with something surprisingly simple: self-love.
And I think that's especially powerful, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
coming from a Black woman, this message of self-love.
Yeah.
Because for so long, Black people have been told implicitly and explicitly
Right.
that they are not worthy of love.
Right. That they're less than.
Exactly.
So for Thenard to reclaim that narrative
Yes.
and to say, hey, we deserve love,
Mm-hmm.
we are worthy of thriving,
It is-
incredibly empowering.
It's huge.
But how do we actually put that into practice, you know?
Right.
Self-love is such a big buzzword these days.
It is.
But what does it actually look like?
Right.
Especially in the context of all this historical and ongoing trauma.
Well, that's where I think Thenard gets really specific.
Okay.
You know, she talks about the need for honest conversations about race.
Yeah.
About acknowledging the ways in which systemic racism continues to affect the lives of Black people.
And she writes,
Yeah.
we can free ourselves from the anger, and heal ourselves from our traumas.
Yeah.
But only if we are willing to have the hard conversations.
And those conversations can be so uncomfortable.
Oh, they can be so uncomfortable.
Especially when it comes to race.
Yes.
Like, there's this unspoken rule that we're not supposed to talk about it.
Right.
And it creates this weird tension.
Right.
But Thenard is urging us to break through that discomfort.
Yeah.
To lean into the awkwardness.
Right.
Because that's where the real growth happens.
And I think her perspective as a Black woman is so important here.
Oh, absolutely.
She's not speaking from a place of theoretical knowledge.
No.
She's speaking from her own lived experience.
Exactly.
Which gives her words this incredible weight and urgency.
Yeah.
She even says
that
Black people are often expected to educate white people about racism.
Yeah, which puts this unfair burden on them. This is like, hey, you figure out why you're being racist.
Right.
Well, I continue to deal with the consequences.
Exactly. And Thenard is calling that out.
Right.
She's saying we need a shared starting point of understanding. It can't just be one-sided.
Yeah.
White people need to do their own work.
Right.
To educate themselves.
Yeah.
To become aware of their own biases.
Right.
And the ways in which they may be contributing to the problem.
Thenard also points out that even the way we talk about history is often distorted.
Oh, yeah.
She mentions how stories about slavery are often sanitized.
Right.
Focusing on the good slave owners, right? Or the happy slaves, which completely ignores the brutal reality.
It does.
Of what happened.
What happens if we're trying to make ourselves feel better about the past by downplaying its horrors.
Right.
But that only serves to perpetuate the cycle of ignorance and denial.
Right. And that's why Thenard is so adamant about telling the truth.
Yes.
About confronting the ugliness of history head on.
And she does it in a way that's both unflinching and compassionate.
She does.
She doesn't shy away from the pain.
Right.
But she also offers this vision of hope, of healing.
Right.
Of a future where Black people can truly thrive.
Okay, so self-love is the starting point.
Yeah.
But what are some of the practical steps Thenard suggests?
Well, she talks about the need for economic empowerment within the Black community, for supporting Black-owned businesses, for investing in Black education and healthcare.
She also challenges the media's portrayal of Black people.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly Black women.
She mentions the stereotype of the angry Black woman.
Right, which is so often used to just dismiss and silence Black women's voices.
It is.
And it's not just about representation, it's about who's telling the stories.
Yeah.
Thenard is advocating for more Black voices in positions of power.
Okay.
In media, in politics, in every aspect of society.
Because when you have more diverse perspectives shaping the narrative, you create a more balanced and equitable world.
Exactly. And Thenard also talks about the need for healing within the Black community, for addressing the trauma that has been passed down through generations.
Right.
She specifically mentions the importance of concepts like Black love.
Okay.
And the need for trust and unity within the Black community.
It's like she's saying we need to heal ourselves before we can truly heal the world.
Yes. And that healing requires a deep understanding of the past.
Yeah.
An acknowledgement of the pain and a commitment to creating a better future for ourselves and for generations to come.
And she also says that, teaching history shouldn't just be about memorizing dates and events.
Right.
It should be about understanding the lasting impact of those events on people's lives today.
I love that point.
Yeah.
It's about connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Showing how the past is still very much present.
Right.
In the ways we think, behave, and interact with each other.
So she's urging us to look beyond the surface.
Yes.
To delve deeper into the nuances of history and its ongoing effects.
And she's not just talking to Black people.
Right.
She's speaking to all of us.
Yes.
Challenging us to confront our own biases. And to actively work towards dismantling these systems of oppression.
She uses this really powerful metaphor of navigating the crosses we bear.
Yeah. It's not about trying to eliminate suffering altogether.
Okay.
But about equipping ourselves and future generations with the tools and resilience to face adversity with grace and courage.
That's a profound shift in perspective.
It is.
Instead of trying to shield our children from the world's harsh realities,
right,
we empower them to navigate those realities with strengths and wisdom.
And that empowerment begins with self-love.
Okay.
With recognizing our own inherent worth.
Right.
And cultivating a sense of inner peace that can weather any storm.
It's like she's saying that the world will always have its challenges, its injustices, its crosses to bear.
Right.
But our ability to thrive,
yeah.
to find joy and purpose amidst those challenges, depends on our capacity to love ourselves.
Yes.
And to connect with that inner strength.
Exactly. And that's what I find so inspiring about Thenard's work.
Yeah.
She's not just pointing out the problems.
Right.
She's offering a path forward.
Yeah.
A path that's rooted in self-love, in collective action.
Yeah.
And in this unwavering belief in the possibility of a better world.
So we've talked about self-love.
Yeah.
Honest conversations, economic empowerment. And rewriting the narrative.
Yeah.
But how do we take all of this actually make a difference in our own lives and in the world around us?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's a question that Thenard leaves us wrestling with.
Right.
She doesn't offer any easy answers, any quick fixes.
Right.
Instead, she challenges us to embrace the complexity of these issues.
Yeah.
And to engage in this ongoing process of learning, unlearning, and relearning.
And she reminds us that this isn't just about Black people.
Right.
It's about all of us. Because when one group is oppressed,
yes,
it diminishes us all.
It does.
True liberation requires a collective effort.
It does.
A willingness to stand up for each other, to challenge injustice wherever we see it.
And I think that's where Thenard's perspective as a Black woman is so valuable.
Yeah.
You know, she's speaking from the margins,
right.
from a place of lived experience that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and about the world we've created.
So it's about listening to those voices, amplifying them, and allowing them to guide us as we navigate these complex issues of race, trauma, and healing.
Absolutely. And that's where I think our deep dive into Thenard's work is so powerful.
Yeah.
It's not just about acquiring knowledge.
Right.
It's about sparking a transformation within ourselves.
Yeah.
A shift in perspective that can ripple outwards and create real change in the world.
Thenard's work is like this call to action.
It is.
This challenge to step outside of our comfort zones and to actively engage in the work of dismantling these systems of oppression that have been in place for far too long.
And that work starts with self-love.
Okay.
With recognizing our own worth and the worth of every human being, regardless of their race, their gender, or any other characteristic that has been used to divide us.
Thenard reminds us that we're all connected.
We are.
That our liberation is bound up with each other's liberation.
And that's a powerful message.
It is.
A message that gives me hope even in the face of all the pain and injustice we see in the world.
It's like she's saying that change is possible.
It is.
But it requires us to show up to do the work.
Yeah.
And to never give up on the dream of a more just and equitable world.
Exactly. And that's a message worth holding on to.
Yeah.
A message that can fuel our efforts and inspire us to keep pushing forward, even when the journey feels long and arduous.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear what's resonating with you.
Yeah.
What are some of the key takeaways that are sticking with you?
For me, it's Thenard's emphasis on self-love as the foundation for both personal and collective healing. Yeah. It's such a simple concept.
It is.
But so profound in its implications.
I'm also struck by her call for honest conversations about race.
Yeah.
And the need for a shared starting point of understanding.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to get defensive.
It is.
Or shut down when these conversations get uncomfortable.
Right.
But Thenard is urging us to lean into that discomfort.
Yeah, to be willing to listen and learn from each other.
And I think it's important to remember that this is an ongoing process.
It is.
You know, a journey that requires patience, humility, and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions.
Absolutely.
Thenard's work is a reminder that we all have a role to play in dismantling these systems of oppression.
We do.
Whether it's through educating ourselves, supporting Black-owned businesses, having those difficult conversations with our friends and family, or simply showing up with love and compassion in our everyday interactions.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Our shared humanity and our collective responsibility to create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
And I think that's a beautiful and inspiring vision worth striving for.
I agree.
You know, it feels like Thenard's really pushing us to ask ourselves some really hard questions. And not just about how society works, but about our own roles in it.
Right.
It's one thing to read about these issues, but it's another thing entirely to look inward and say, okay, how am I complicit in these systems?
Right.
Where do I need to change?
It's that self-awareness piece that's so crucial.
That is.
Thenard isn't letting us off the hook with easy answers.
Right.
She's challenging us to confront these uncomfortable truths about ourselves.
Yeah.
About the ways in which we may be perpetuating harm, even unintentionally.
And that ties back to her point about the asshole coin.
Exact.
We've all been on both sides.
We have.
It's a reminder that none of us are perfect.
Right.
We all have the capacity for both good and bad.
Yes. But it's what we choose to do with that awareness that matters.
Yeah, it is.
And I think Thenard's writing offers this roadmap for us,
Okay.
For moving from that place of awareness to action.
Okay.
She talks about the need for education, for economic empowerment, for rewriting the narrative.
Yeah.
These are all concrete steps we can take to create a more just and equitable world.
And she doesn't just focus on the external systems.
Right.
She also emphasizes the importance of inner work.
Yes.
Of healing our own traumas
Right.
and cultivating self-love.
Right, because as she says, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
We have to start with ourselves before we can truly make a difference in the world.
And I think that's where Thenard's perspective as a Black woman is so powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
She's not just talking about abstract concepts.
No.
She's speaking from a place of deep personal experience.
Yeah.
Of having navigated these systems of oppression her whole life.
Mm.
And her message is one of resilience, of hope.
Yeah.
Of the unwavering belief that change is possible.
It is.
One of the lines that really stuck with me from Why Not Thrive is, we must teach our children not to cleanse the world, but to navigate the crosses they will inevitably bear.
Oh, that's a good one.
The powerful reframing, isn't it?
It is.
Instead of trying to create a perfect world, we empower them with the tools to face the world's complexities.
Right.
With strength and grace.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's about equipping them with resilience.
Yeah.
With critical thinking skills, with the ability to challenge injustice
Right.
and to advocate for themselves and others.
And that starts with us.
It does.
Modeling those behaviors.
Yeah.
And creating a space where they feel safe to express themselves and to question the status quo.
Thenard's work feels like this urgent call to action.
It does.
Like this reminder that we can't afford to be complacent.
Right.
To sit on the sidelines and hope someone else will fix things.
Yeah, we all have a responsibility
We do.
to create a more just and equitable world.
And that work starts within each of us.
It does. And I think the first step is simply to listen.
Yeah.
To really hear the voices of those who have been marginalized and oppressed.
Thenard's writing is an invitation.
It is.
To step outside of our own limited perspectives.
Yeah.
And to engage with a different way of seeing the world.
It's about recognizing that our individual liberation is bound up with the liberation of others.
It is.
We can't truly thrive as a society until everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Right, and that requires a fundamental shift in consciousness.
It does.
A willingness to challenge the systems and beliefs that perpetuate inequality.
Thenard's work is a reminder that this isn't just about politics or policy.
It's not.
It's about our hearts, our minds, our souls.
It is.
It's about who we are as human beings and the kind of world we want to create.
Yes.
For ourselves and for future generations.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into R.M. Thenard's powerful writing, I want to leave you with a question.
Okay.
How will you move from awareness to action?
Yeah, what steps will you take, both big and small, to contribute to a more just and equitable world?
Let's not just be consumers of information. Let's be agents of change.
Yes.
Carrying Thenard's message of hope, resilience, and collective action into our own lives and communities.
That's a perfect note to end on.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
We hope it sparked some new insights and inspired you to continue exploring these important issues.
Keep learning, keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.